Welcome back to our polytunnel build. This next bit's pretty much, or ought to be fairly straightforward. There's only one little tricky bit really. So I've got to build the raised beds. Some people do, some people don't use raised beds. We've decided to give it a whirl. Hopefully I won't end up removing them too quickly. For the wood, this is some tropical hardwood. I'll put a link to the place we bought it from. It's an online supplier. We've gone for a hardwood because we don't want to use normal sort of soft boards and then treat them, because we don't want the treatment leaching into the soil and then obviously into the food that we're going to eat. So we've used these. They're totally untreated, and hopefully they will rot, but they won't rot quickly. So they should last a few years. That's the plan anyway. So it's not terribly difficult making essentially some square frames or rectangular frames. The bit that's tricky, or the bit that's puzzling me still, and hopefully we'll solve, is this gap basically. So we've got the sheeting that goes underneath the whole of the ground area, but there's inevitably a little bit of a gap between the sheeting and the edge of the polytunnel. And what I don't want to have to do is to be dealing with the grass that's poking through. There already is some grass poking through. I'm going to try and cover that up. So, you know, because obviously I'm never going to be able to mow or trim down that tiny bit, and I don't want to be putting weed killer down. So we've got to try and figure out a way of getting the ground sheet to cover right to the edge in a way which is firm enough for things not to grow through. So that's the plan. We'll see how we get on. I've already started making the frame. As you can see, I've got this slightly odd shape going on. It's because this is going to carry on up for the rest of the length of the polytunnel, and I need to be able to join another board on. So I've put this intermediate bit just inboard slightly, and I'm going to use some offcuts of wood I've got left over from building the polytunnel, and then underneath here, put that block in low, below the level where you won't see it. And then screw through, and that'll connect the two lengths together. It won't matter that this isn't exactly in the middle. And then I'm also a bit worried that these things are going to bow out slightly when I've got lots of soil in. So I'm also going to put these in, maybe one or two per length. And again, I put those down at the bottom, screw them in, and that'll keep the thing tight and stop the boards from bowing out under the weight of the soil and water and plants and all the other good stuff that's going to go in them. Wow, it's getting hot in here. Right, so the plan is, or I think the plan is, we've got a bit of plastic offcut left over from the bottom of here, and we've brought that inside. We're going to have the matting pushed underneath it, and then we're going to put a layer of tape across here, which will hopefully largely keep it in place. And then if we've positioned it reasonably well, the raised beds will sit on top of that and hopefully pinch it down, at least enough to prevent the grass coming through. So we'll see how we get on with that idea. So this is what we've got. The polythene is now taped to the black undersheet. It's only packing tape. We're not expecting this to last. Hopefully the combination of the raised beds being sat on the top of it and then being pinned and stapled, as you'll see later, will be enough to make it all work. Fingers crossed. We had a busy day yesterday, and we finished our first bit of the raised beds. Hopefully, as described, we've got these blocks in there joining the two lengths together. It should be nice and secure. I cut these by eye, which is why there's a gap, because I didn't do it very perfectly. And over here I've got these little braces in, which will hopefully stop the wood from bowing out. I've only put one in per section. Hope it'll be enough, but we'll find out. And hopefully they'll be strong enough. And then today we're going to try and replicate that over on the far side, and then another smaller, or another wider bed but shorter in the middle, giving us enough space to walk in and out. That's the plan. Oh, and the other thing was the cover here. So we've taped the plastic from the bottom of the polytunnel onto the ground sheet. I know it's only packing tape, I'm not expecting that to actually last. The plan is now then to cut through here, fold it back and trim it so it'll be up here, and hopefully then the ground sheet pressed against here will be enough to hold the plastic in place as well. I was planning to staple it. I've since been reconsidering that and wondering maybe if we've got enough of this battening left over. This is just left over from the polytunnel build. Whether if we battened all the way along here, that would be a lot tighter and give a longer term solution. That's the plan. We'll see how we get on. Okay, so the state of play at the moment, we've trimmed out all of the ground sheet from this end bed and the middle one. We've yet to do the one on the far side. That's going to wait till later. And then next job for the two ones we've cut at least is to put down a layer of cardboard. We've fairly neatly tucked it in either side just to try and keep out any of the grass. Well, that's the idea anyway. And when all this is done and it's all completely covered and we've filled in all the gaps, like that little one there, then we'll wet it all down completely and then shovel all the compost on top. We've done 2 layers of cardboard on everything. It's a little bit haphazard in places, but hopefully we've got all the right coverage. If you don't know, this is part of the no-dig method of gardening. The idea is you put the cardboard down, suppress any weeds, just put the compost on top of it, and yay, no digging, which is perfect for where we live in Herefordshire because there's some very heavy clay soil, so it's quite hard to work with anyway. Hopefully by the time the cardboard rots down, the grass and weeds underneath will have long gone anyway, and then all the plants can just go straight down into it, and the worms can come up and all that sort of nice goodness. There are plenty of videos on YouTube about no-dig gardening if you want to look them up. In theory, you should leave it at sort of like 6 to 12 months after putting the cardboard down to give the grass a good chance to die before you put anything else on top. But we're too eager and we want to get on and plant some things, so we're just going to risk it. So we've put a little bit extra cardboard down. Hopefully that'll balance things out. And now we're going to wet it all. I can't remember why, but that's what you've got to do. So we're going to wet it. Off we go. Here's Oliver making sure we get all the compost out the bag. How's it going, Oliver? You get it?
Good.
Next we're going to make him clean the chimney. What do you think of your new polytunnel, Soph?
It's exciting.
Okay, Esther's going to plant one of these. What is this, Mummy?
Ask Esther.
Esther, what is it?
I'm a lettuce.
A lettuce. We are super excited to be putting our first few plants inside the polytunnel now.
Just
Having done the two other borders previously, we're now left it, I don't know, whatever it was, like a week or something before coming back and having a go on the last one. And it's funny, isn't it, just giving a little bit of a break. You perhaps attack things with a slightly different attitude. I've not changed anything drastic, but I did change a couple of things, so I thought I'd talk you through those now. The first thing you might notice if we look down here is that instead of having one nice long bit of wood between each section, we've got all sorts of bits and pieces, and it gets worse down at the other end. And that's just because we'd run out of the battens, or run out of lengths of the batten, and I used up what we had left over. It's not a big deal, it's going to be hidden, so that's not a problem. But what I did change was, previously when I did the first one, I cut the ground sheet and then folded it back, put the batten on, and then used a knife to cut along that. You might have seen that. But that actually created quite a lot of mess, because this stuff seems to drop little bits of black plastic everywhere, and was a nightmare to clean up. So what I did this time was cut it with a pair of scissors instead, which was a cleaner cut, and then folded it back on itself, so there's a bit of a fold there, and then put the batten on, and that was a lot neater, a lot better job. You can see it perhaps a bit better here, where I've actually had just a little bit extra, and so I've gone as far as to staple the excess out of the way, and did pretty much exactly the same thing on this side. I've just stapled it here, we're not so worried about it. Yeah, folded it back, cut it, folded it back, and then stapled it, and it's a lot neater job. So if you're going to repeat this, those are definitely a couple of good tips for you. One thing also I've thought about, which could be something that will backfire later, we'll find out, is that down here now, where we've got the plastic is coming up from the polythene and then up and then hopefully trapped in here, is that we also therefore don't have anywhere for the water to go. Condensation will form on the inside of the polythene and will run down, and it may well be that we end up with some little rivers running back down the back. I've no idea. Time will tell. It could be turn out to be a disastrous idea, but that hopefully the fact that we're on a very slight slope here will work in our favour. It made building the thing a little bit more difficult, but it could help because the water should drain from one end to the other. But naturally we don't want the wood to rot any faster than it should otherwise, but we'll see. So yeah, if you are thinking about replicating that this idea or this approach, please bear that in mind. And maybe when this has been up and running for a year or something, we'll come back and shoot another video and see how we're getting on. But the cardboard's down. The next step is to fill it up with compost and get planting, so everything's as neat and tidy as the other side. Well, hopefully you can see behind me that the final raised bed is now finished. We've got things growing in it. One or two things. In fact, we've got things growing everywhere now. We've got lettuces, tomatoes, lots of other good things, and we're looking forward to eating some of the produce that we're starting to grow now. This is the end of this video. There are still a few things to sort out. We've got the staging to do, but we don't entirely know what we're going to do for that yet, so that'll come later. And hopefully we'll have future videos to cover the irrigation system. I've got most of the parts on order already, so I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be ambitious and hopefully pretty exciting. And also another video on our hen house and hen run, a little intro to those. I hope you found this video useful. Please do comment if you found it interesting, like, subscribe and all that whatnot. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.